Manu trabaja en el Departamento de Estado de Estados Unidos. Él ha venido especialmente a la reunión. Yo quisiera resaltar que el Departamento de Estado siempre apoya todas las actividades que hacemos en cualquier país de América Latina y en Estados Unidos. También el año pasado hicimos una actividad que se llama Escuela del Sur de Gobernanza de Internet en Washington, y también tuvimos la presencia del embajador Dani Sepúlveda, y ahora lo invitamos a Dani, pero Manu ha sido gentilmente, lo han enviado a Manu a acompañarnos a nosotros esta mañana. Yo les pedí a ellos que nos contaran, Oscar, un poquito bajito, gracias. No me cumplen los muchachos. Ellos tienen una iniciativa muy interesante que se llama Global Connect, que la han estado presentando a finales del año pasado, y yo les pedí a Manu si nos podía contar de qué se trata. Y recuerden que tenemos traducción simultánea. You will speak in English, right? Así que si necesitan traducción simultánea del inglés al español, pueden usar el servicio de traducción. Gracias a las traductoras que aguantan nuestro desenfrenado ritmo de hablar. Manu, you are welcome to. Thank you very much for being with us, and I'm so sorry I cannot pronounce your last name. So say it again.
Bardwatch.
Manu Bardwatch. It was okay? Okay. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's really a delight to be here today with all of you. I'm so excited to talk a little bit more about what the United States is doing with the international community to try to help bridge the global digital divide and bring more people online, making the internet more affordable and accessible to the rest of the world. One way I thought to start is to look at what is the state of broadband in our own region, in the Americas. In the Americas, a recent study, and I think it's very typical of other regions as well, found that roughly 90% is covered by mobile broadband. Sounds like a good number. 90% of the Americas is covered by mobile broadband. However, a closer examination reveals that only about 50% of those people are actually connected and online. What that means is that half of the population, while being in region with coverage, could not actually connect to the mobile internet. Research into the cause behind this gap in connectivity points to generally 3 barriers. One of them is lack of locally relevant content. Second is lack of digital literacy. And last one is just limited affordability. It's just too expensive for them to take advantage of the network coverage. In general, as we look through the trajectory of the last 10 years, we are seeing good news. The internet's economic benefits are increasingly shifting to the Americas. The internet audience in the Americas specifically grew 23% in the past year, and now represents 8% of the global internet audience. I think it's useful to talk about countries specifically in our region and kind of learn from them and approaches and lessons learned and different ways that they've gone about trying to extend connectivity. In many ways, Chile stands out in the region with over 66.5% of its population now connecting to the internet. In total, Chile has 14.1 million users. Brazil also leads South America with the most internet users, 139.1 million, followed by Argentina, Colombia, and Peru. The United States is doing pretty well. We rank as a leader with internet adoption rates of 88.5%, as does Mexico and Costa Rica, Panama in Central America. But there are countries that are lagging. Bolivia, Belize, Guyana, Paraguay rank among the South American countries that are lagging the farthest behind, with internet adoption rates of 41.9% to 45.9% respectively. So almost 40% of their population has some access to the internet or internet adoption, but the rest does not. So almost 2/3 of the population. So there's a reason, I think, why access is relatively high in Colombia, but maybe not someplace else. There's a reason why it's high in Chile or Colombia and low in Guatemala. Some governments are doing more than others to facilitate access for people in poor and remote areas. And the starting point, I think, for every country, and I think some of the story here in Puerto Rico reflects that, is that you need to have a clear and comprehensive national broadband plan that allows for investment, competition, helps remove bureaucratic obstacles, takes full advantage of community centers and some of your incumbent players, some of the innovators, and really kind of think about how we can specifically move forward in trying to connect all of our schools by 2020, which is actually a goal that some countries have, like Tunisia, for example. So we have just launched a year ago the Global Connect Initiative. I thought I would kind of talk to you a little bit about the initiative and also highlight a little bit more about the factual context in terms of the state of connectivity. So the Global Connect Initiative, our top line goal is to bring 1.5 billion people online by 2020. Our goal is also to highlight the linkage between the internet and the Sustainable Development Goals. Part of the Sustainable Development Goals were just adopted last year in New York as part of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. We're trying to make the point that the internet is a key enabler in achieving all of those goals, whether you're talking about ending extreme poverty, providing better healthcare, providing better education, that even though the SDGs don't often mention the internet, the internet is absolutely a key thing that has to be on every country's mind. Let me do the next slide. So one of the unique things about Global Connect is we are trying to get the multilateral development banks, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, the African Development Bank, and the development finance institutions. This is a new idea to them, that they need to think about the internet just like they would traditional infrastructure. It's not a new idea to anybody in this room, but it's a new idea to a lot of the folks in that community. And as evidence of that, when we launched the initiative, we learned right away that the World Bank was only devoting 1% of its total budget for infrastructure. 1% of its total budget for infrastructure was going to ICTs or connectivity. And we realized that we have a lot of work to do to get them to commit to transformative increases in their lending, because a lot of countries go to them and they have a real global stage, and a lot of the gaps are due to financing and lack of funds. So as we kind of talk to all of the financial institutions, we're encouraging them to do specific things. Prioritize internet connectivity across their regional and functional practices. So each of the banks has a healthcare practice, an education practice, and the point that we're trying to make is that the internet should be viewed not just as like some ICT thing that's part of the infrastructure division, but should be viewed at more cross-cutting as a way for all of the bank's sector groups to achieve their goals. We're encouraging them to hire technical experts, people that have first-hand experience in laying out a fiber optic cable or with satellite technology, or really kind of beefing up their own ability in this capacity. And also, I've called it drive demand from borrower countries. A lot of countries were just not asking for this help from the bank, but they are now. And I think part of it was to realize that the internet and the banks could be a resource for them as they try to kind of deliver on some of their broadband strategies, et cetera. So we are now seeing a lot of positive progress there. And then finally, just getting them to think about, if the banks or the finance institutions are building a road, well, hey, you can actually lay a fiber optic cable at a significant cost savings, and that's called dig once. And really trying to encourage all of the finance institutions to think like that, and also, by the way, just the development bodies, development organizations like USAID or other international ones like DFID, that's part of the UK. It's part of our goal. This is kind of a nice slide because it shows the challenge of internet access, I think, and how the majority of traffic is still in developed countries. So it kind of shows you how much work we have to do. We've heard the statistics about how I think half the world is offline currently. Well, if you look at it, it's really jarring, especially when you look at Africa. and just what the picture is there and how much there is a need to try to make more progress. This is another really interesting slide, I think. This comes from the ITU's data, right? The ITU receives data from all of the regulators, and they do an annual report called the State of the Broadband Report. And in this chart, what we've done is I just tracked kind of the progress of how many people are coming online. And these are categories that the ITU has: developed countries, developing countries, etc. And you can see that one of the lessons could be, and I think it's jarring, is that the divide doesn't really close. So over time, you don't really see a significant bridging of the gap between developing countries and developed countries. You can absolutely see 10 years from now, hopefully, a lot of developed countries are going to be peaking or plateauing at 80 or something, and so that maybe there would be then but then think about countries like Afghanistan, which is like a least developed country, and what the picture must be for them, because they're like way below, right, the map in terms of where they are, and yet we know also that the president of Afghanistan has prioritized connectivity for his country in terms of like their ability to kind of foster greater economic development and stability. So, we do, so we're trying to kind of highlight that we have some progress to make together. There are challenges that are clearly identifiable for countries in terms of how they can be smarter in kind of delivering more broadband access. And so these are like buckets, and I'm not going to say that each bucket is of the same importance, but they're just kind of ways that we kind of talk about, what is the challenge. One is lack of funds for infrastructure. Some of these infrastructure projects are very costly, and developing countries don't often have the money or resources to do it without private sector investment. Minimal technical expertise. Corruption, political instability, restraints on free speech. So these are things through Global Connect that we're kind of talking to countries about that we think are ways that they need to be thinking about as challenges that they face and strategies to kind of overcome these challenges so they can make more progress. I just want to kind of give you a clear sense of the initiative and the key objectives. So we launched literally 1 year ago in September. And since then, we have a coalition of over 40 countries that support Global Connect. It's an international effort. It's always meant to be one. We launched with Jim Kim of the World Bank, the president of Estonia, a number of folks from the Broadband Commission. So the point is that we're just trying to catalyze leadership from other institutions, organizations, and try to create an umbrella effort where we're working with a wide variety of partners and leveraging everyone's expertise. And again, our top line goal is very measurable, 1.5 billion by 2020. We will likely know success or failure there. I can say that just last year, we found out that in all of last year, only 0.3 billion people came online. So it looks like a close call in terms of whether or not we'll make the metric. Our kind of key goals here are to encourage all countries to make internet access central to their development and growth strategies. That's like number one. So internet should be central to your overall development and growth strategy. It should be something that the finance minister thinks about. It's not just a communications minister thing anymore. It actually has more relevance to your overall economic growth. And so, the health, education, it should be like a government-wide approach. Second is to kind of work, as I mentioned, with multilateral development institutions and the banks. To double, that's the commitment that Secretary Kerry made in April, that he wants to see a doubling of public and private lending for connectivity and digital technologies. And then finally, there's a lot of benefits of doing an initiative like this in the United States. One is that we have a lot of soft power here. A lot of the leading companies, a lot of the leading experts in this space are American citizens. And we're really trying to effectively harness the knowledge, skills, and resources of our tech community, right? The Silicon Valley community or other communities all across the United States, including here, to implement solutions for high-speed, affordable broadband access. And so I think generally we're trying to really emphasize the most important thing is your policy environment. And whether that policy environment that you've put in place is really facilitating investment and encouraging growth and fostering innovative solutions. I'm very pleased to say that a lot of countries in the Americas have expressed the most interest in Global Connect. In fact, when we first kind of solicited all countries in the world, the Americas region in particular was very excited about this and really looking for partnerships and ways to move forward together as a region. And so that's why in Argentina, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Panama, Peru, the Organization of American States all have endorsed the initiative. And so in terms of other progress that we've made, since our launch 1 year ago, we have now committed, so we're getting our own house in order in terms of our commitment here, $2 billion in US development, US finance aid for connectivity programs. That includes agencies that really never were engaged before in connectivity, like the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, which is now starting to finance major projects in Myanmar, Kenya, India, all throughout the world. And they're very private sector driven, and what OPIC can provide companies is some sort of support when they're worried about investing in an environment where there's some political risk because of the government, etc. They can also offer really low interest rates. And so we're seeing, like, for example, in OPIC's case, an organization that never really was involved in connectivity before, there's a lot of now interest, right, in trying to do more through them. And they've done $1 billion in just 1 year on connectivity and ICT. The other $1 billion has come from our other federal agencies, like Millennium Challenge Corporation, USAID, FCC, Department of Treasury. And so it's an all-of US government approach. President Obama, at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in California, I don't know if many of you saw, but Obama went to Silicon Valley, and he was basically bringing together entrepreneurs from all over the world and trying to encourage them and their careers and their ideas for how to pursue technology. And at this summit, and the next one will be held in India, Obama released an executive order for Global Connect. And in that executive order, he did a couple things. One is created an international connectivity core in the US government that's chaired by the State Department, and includes all of our federal agencies. And what we're doing in the State Department is we're trying to work with them to really develop concrete strategies on how everybody, all of our agencies, can be working together more strategically in key areas, key market areas, key countries. Second, there was a commitment to really highlight from the Department of Treasury and others how much more we want the banks to do. I think one of the reasons it's good for the US to take an initiative like this is that we tend to fund a lot of the banks the most. Whether it's the Inter-American Development Bank, we're like one of the leading contributors, including Korea and a few others, the World Bank. We have a lot of influence here. And so if we say that we're able to communicate at a high enough level that connectivity is important, we want to see some results here, the chances are we can start seeing some movement. We're really excited now as we think about the next phase of focus countries. Countries where we can work together with other stakeholders, with other governments, with our ministry, and as we kind of think about where to focus efforts, one of our mantras here is listening first. So a country would come to us and say, we would really love the help of Global Connect in trying to deliver on our broadband goals, whether it's connecting schools, hospitals, middle mile infrastructure, whatever it is. And so the idea is that basically they'll kind of self-volunteer. And countries are doing that, and we're really excited about it. And so some of the countries that have already done it are, just to name a few, Argentina, Tunisia, India, Liberia. And so it's like a nice broad cross-section. And we are really thinking that this group of countries, even before the end of the year, could grow to 15. And that's really going to be the way that we think we can start accelerating progress. We think that the US community, US stakeholders have a unique role and responsibility to play here because we invented the internet. We have a lot of the leading experts in the field in the United States. And gosh, just imagine how much we could do if we were more in positions to kind of actually advise countries and kind of give them a sense, because a lot of these countries don't have a lot of tech capacity, particularly some developing countries, and really kind of thinking about a tech core of U.S. and other stakeholders going out and thinking strategically about how they can help kind of expand access in certain markets would be something that we're working towards. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really looking forward to kind of the discussion. If there are any questions, but I'd be happy to take just a Q&A if that sounds right, Olga.
Thank you very much. I have a question before giving the floor to others. When you explained it to me, and I got explanations from colleagues from you, from the Department of States in the IGF last year in João Pessoa, it seems to me it is more of a financing project from the United States towards other countries. I would like maybe you can share with us how the United States is planning not only financing, which I think that you have the power and the view, the global view to engage these agencies. How do you envision the technical help that, as you rightly mentioned, you have all the expertise, you invented the internet, most of the most relevant experts are there. Not only in the States, but mainly there. And it's a big economy also. And so how do you see that part of the technical engagement in between the project and the countries? And what would a country do, knowing that there are people listening remotely, what does a country must do to approach the United States government through maybe the Foreign Affairs Ministry, or how they have to approach you? And then we give the floor to others.
It's a great question. So when we were thinking about how do we mobilize the tech community, which is basically kind of what I was saying, we had a terrific idea. IEEE. It's a global organization of 800,000 electrical engineers, computer experts. They have membership in countries all over the world. And so I talked to folks at IEEE, and they have announced as their commitment to hold Global Connect stakeholder conferences, both during every single bank fund. The bank fund meets twice a year, April and September, and typically in Washington. But then also, in addition to these like bank fund technical community conferences, they'll also hold regional events. And they just did one in Delhi. They're planning one in Tunisia. And I think the beauty of having an organization like IEEE involved is that, so like in India, they have members that are in Bangalore, all over the Indian subcontinent. These are local voices talking about their local needs. They have the technical expertise. And so it seems to be a really good approach. And we're also, through these kind of stakeholder conferences events, trying to really bring in strong players like Internet Society, which was a sponsor of our last Global Connect Stakeholders Conference that just happened a few weeks ago, and the World Bank, and just trying to kind of bring together these communities of folks. We'll have to kind of continue to think about the technical question, because there's a huge hunger out there for technical expertise, and finding a system that will best deliver and meet the needs of countries that are looking for this type of expertise is not easy. But I do think that a lot of US companies now, and a lot of international companies, are starting to make this more of a priority, even in their own corporate strategy, and other governments are making more a priority connectivity in their strategies, and so that should help. I don't remember if there was another part of the question.
If the country wants to approach you, what they should do?
I think the easiest way would be for them to send me or my colleagues in the State Department a message. And even if they haven't talked to their own Foreign Affairs Ministry, we have an open door, and we can kind of talk to them about what we're hearing, what are some approaches that make sense for us. Ideally, we want the government definitely very supportive and excited and a full partner. But for folks like listening, they shouldn't hesitate to reach out to me or others at the State Department, because we would love to kind of hear from them about what their local insights are, about how to best make progress in their country, and really learn from that.
Hello. Yes, thanks for that presentation. So I think you are aware of a private led incentives or initiatives to actually rich internet, like the balloon from Google, or I don't know, Facebook is doing something else. So I want to know what's the relationship between those private initiatives and your government-led initiative, and what's your take on them?
I think we're kind of entering a really interesting period where there's a lot of different innovative approaches that companies are trying with drones, with balloons, and with rockets, SpaceX. And it'll be interesting now to see kind of how these initiatives evolve over time, and let's be optimistic that they'll succeed in what they're trying to accomplish. But in the meantime, I think it's definitely true that fiber, towers, traditional means of providing connectivity should be prioritized. These are ways that are really effective and should remain a focus in many ways for us as we move forward. We are really kind of supportive of all kind of industry-led efforts and trying to kind of work to the best of our ability with them in a coherent way. But it's great that U.S. companies have come on board to support Global Connect. Almost all of them have at this point. And when we try to hold events or conferences or meetings with bilateral ministers, we're always trying to kind of highlight what are some things that companies are doing that the government folks might want to, that may need more support from government, or the government folks may not be aware of. So we are trying to consult closely with them.
¿Más preguntas para Manu?
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing that most important information. I'd like to ask, are only governments the ones that are invited to join this program, or can other organizations within the government can also join? For example, the Department of Education or something like that within a country, rather than the government itself.
We would welcome any kind of component of the government to kind of express support and join the initiative. That would be a big win for us. Ideally, we would want kind of a government to kind of reflect with everyone and come forward with a position that's unified. But we're finding sometimes in some countries that we're happy with a subcomponent. That's, sometimes that's actually, at least a good way to start, right? Working together and just trying to learn more about the country context and what are some ways that Global Connect can be beneficial to them. We're also trying to kind of include stakeholders as supporters of the initiative, so it's not just a country-based thing. We're trying to, we've learned from like the IGF, from other multi-stakeholder efforts, and we very much want this one to also be multi-stakeholder in character.
I'm happy to know that Argentina has joined from the very beginning. Don't know what really means at the concrete level if something is happening already, but I know that the government of my country has been supportive of the initiative from the very beginning, and perhaps you could explore IEEE is fantastic, and maybe you can explore other organizations that could bring technical expertise, because I'm a technical person and I'm always keen to cooperate with these projects. ¿Más preguntas para Manu? Okay, thank you very much. Aplauso para Manu de vuelta. It's very, very interesting, and thank you again for flying from Washington. You live there? Yeah. To Puerto Rico, and I know you have to leave later today, but you will join with us for lunch. And maybe there are some other questions or people that would like to join you and have more details. Pueden encontrarse con Manu durante el almuerzo, él nos va a acompañar en el almuerzo ahora. Entonces, si no hay más preguntas, más comentarios, los invitamos a almorzar al salón de al lado. Gracias a Punto PR que nos invita con este almuerzo, gentil invitación de .pr. Y nos juntamos a las 2 de la tarde, ¿les parece bien? ¿Sí? Y después a la tarde, acuérdense que tenemos